Shalom, shalom. I am Moray Amir Writer, Moray of Torah Culture Assembly, and today I want to get into something that I've really been thinking about, contemplating, studying, meditating on for quite some time, and I believe it's finally time for me to present this to those who are intended to hear it. See, this is a weighty topic, but it's something that I'm extremely excited about. And the reason why I'm excited is because I've actually seen the fruit of this manifest in some brothers' lives. So when this word has gone out, or this message has gone out, I've actually seen men get convicted. And it sparked something inside of them to actually make a change. And so I seen them desire some type of resolve and understand that this is the path of a Hebrew man. And so I've seen relationships become restored. And you know, this is not a vanity teaching, but and it's something that some people will get offended about because of pride. Like, there should really be no reason why what I'm going to talk about should cause someone to get upset, other than the fact that it goes against something that they want, because we like to hold on to this hurt and this belief that we've been wronged. So we like to have our opinion, this high opinion of our feelings. Pride is strong, it's powerful, and it causes us to operate in a manner in which we lose our sensibility. So this is not something that will resonate with everyone. However, I do pray that those who are intended to hear this, who are meant to hear this, will most definitely hear it, and that it will remove the hardened heart, and it will cause change to occur and reconciliation to follow. Hallelujah. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. We're going to start off with Malachi 4:6. Malachi 4:6, and it reads, "And he will turn the hearts of fathers to their children, and the hearts of the children to their fathers, lest I come and strike the land with a decree of utter destruction." So this scripture right here will pretty much serve as the foundation for everything that I'm going to be building on in these upcoming weeks, months, however long it takes me to disseminate this message or this word that has to go forth. All right. So Malachi 4:6, "And he will turn the hearts of the fathers to their children, and the hearts of the children to their fathers." Now, I'm going to go ahead and point this out because it's something that you need to know. Ecclesiastes says that there is nothing new under the sun. So nowadays, we're over here talking about pronouns and gender neutral terms and inclusion, right? That's the big one. Inclusion. And here we are, even back then when the sacred, holy Hebrew text was translated into what we have now known as the Bible. The translators even then had done a very great disservice, something that will exclude the significance and destroy the intimate relationship between a father and a son by watering down with the text, with inclusion. See, so what has happened was, when you look at something like Malachi, like right here it says, "I will turn the hearts of the fathers to their children, and the hearts of the children to their fathers." It seems very innocuous, very straightforward and neutral. But when you look at the Hebrew, you will see what's actually going on. It's not talking about children as a whole or as a collective. It's actually referring to sons. Look at the Hebrew word behind the English. You will see bang. Specifically, if you look at it in context, you will see banim, which means sons, plural. So what is really saying is that it's going to turn the hearts of the fathers to their sons, and the hearts of the sons to their fathers. Yet even back then, for the sake of inclusion, compromise was occurring when those who so that those who the scriptures were written to would wake up in the land of their captivity, in the land far from home. Their awakening will still contain this slumber aspect, right? It's basically they'll wake up, but they're drowsy because the foundation of what we need to return to is diminished. So a son from a broken home seeing children in places like this, and this isn't the only place, but in places like this, instead of son, will not be able to self-identify with the very thing that was written to him. So see, this is the element that has been broken. It's very fragmented right now within the Hebrew community, the so-called black community. It's not the relationship between the fathers and the children per se, although that has been affected, but the biggest deficiency that we have is within the relationship between the father and the son, right? A father and his son. There was an intentional disconnect that was inserted as a wedge between these two, because when these two are one, when that relationship is reconciled, when that relationship is whole, when that relationship is flourishing, then Israel will be powerful and will be able to rise. When this relationship is one, you will actually begin to see the restoration of a kingdom. But without this relationship being intact, without it, you will not get this restoration. You will not get what many people are waiting for, this return. This will not happen when this relationship is still a fragmented relationship. So it needs to be pieced back together. It needs to be reconciled. It needs to be whole. And this is what I'm going to be talking about for the foreseeable future. So here we are claiming, Hebrews of the diaspora, claiming to return back to our culture, yet overlook how cultural it is to honor our Father. You cannot, I repeat, you cannot have Hebrew culture without an honorable dynamic between a father and a son. Throw away all the outward vain facades that we display for the applause of men. Throw out all the books, all the ebooks, all the literature that we use to get puffed up with knowledge. That dynamic between the father and the son is as much a part of the return to culture as anything else. Indeed, even weightier than most things. All right. So the weight of the father and son relationship is one that must be analyzed, because as the dominant culture would have it, they have perverted that which was from the beginning and original and of the utmost importance, and has reversed it to cause men to revere their mothers and disregard their fathers, even to the point of having disdain for him. Now, this is going to be the one and only disclaimer. All right, this is my one and only disclaimer, so hear it and take note. All right, so this is not a slight to the mother. American government is patriarchal. American society is matriarchal. And society is what influences the people. The mother and son relationship is not the one fragmented. You know, when something happens, when these homes get split up, when they get broken up, the vast majority of the time, the children, sons and daughters, go with the mother. The relationship between the father is the one that is truly fractured in the breaking of the home. Again, this is my one and only disclaimer. I'm not going to be doing this throughout the rest of these videos. Don't email me about this. This is not a slight on the mother. But the relationship between the son and the mother is not going to bring the restoration of Israel. It's not. This is not to disregard the mother. This is not to devalue the mother. But the relationship of Israel will not come with the son and mother dynamic, but it is the father and son relationship that will bring Israel to a state of restoration. All right. That is my disclaimer. So many adult males today think that they can circumvent their biological father and get back to Jacob. You can't. You can't circumvent your bloodline, especially direct bloodline, and attempt to link yourself to Jacob. You can't say that you're the seed of Jacob while eliminating the father from the equation whom you preceded from. The reverence of the father has been removed and placed on the mother, and this is out of order, but this is by design. How can a nation rise, right? How can a nation be restored if the men, especially the fathers, are the lowest in the community? The weakening of the family was initiated by removing the father from the home. Ecclesiasticus or Sirach says, whosoever honors his father, we're really going to get into that word honor, but whosoever honors his father makes atonement for his sins. Think about that, right? Whosoever honors his father makes atonement for his sins. Yet society has taken the black father, quote unquote, and has taken him out of the home and has caused the eye of the son to look at his father with disdain. All right. So let's unpack that word disdain, because I'm very intentional with the words that I'm using. So let's unpack that word disdain. All right. Disdain. To look on with scorn. To refuse or abstain from, right? To refuse or abstain from because of a feeling of contempt or scorn. Number 3, to treat as beneath one's notice or dignity. So this is to say the father is in the elevated status and the son is in a lower status, right? But this status has been reversed. So it says to treat as beneath one's notice or dignity. So when someone is at an elevated vantage point, to treat them as beneath one's notice is like you're looking around and you don't even see them. You don't recognize the person. You don't recognize the authority, the position, or the status. You are basically saying that they are not worthy. You don't acknowledge them because of their unworthiness. So this is going to come into play because we have to get to the root of what it is that we're doing. See, we keepers of Torah, we are in violation of Torah and don't even realize it, walking around with this self-righteous bravado and these feelings of contempt towards our fathers. All right, so let's unpack this. So we Hebrews cannot claim obedience from the Father when we look down on our fathers, the one that the Creator used to bring you into being. All right, the 5th commandment has a contingency applied to it, and many males are shortening their own days. They're shortening their time because they violate this. Keeping in mind that Torah, when we are obedient to Torah, it provides a hedge of protection. And when we disregard this codified book of instructions, it removes your hedge, causing you to be vulnerable to all sorts of attacks from the adversary. Especially when one such as this, which is woven into the very fabric of the Hebrew man. So here we go. Exodus 20:12. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which Yahuwah the Elohim giveth thee. All right. So, see, I've read this, what I'm about to say. I've read this from many different sources. Nevertheless, take it for what it's worth. But I've read this, that the 10 Commandments, when split in half, represents how a man is to interact with the Almighty, right, the Father, and how a man, the second half, how a man is to interact with man, i.e. his neighbor. You know, the 2 greatest commandments, love Yah, love people, or love your neighbor. But because we have a lot of interpreters of the text and scholars of the text who come from a people that the oracles of Yah was not given to, right? The Hebrew scriptures was not given to these people. So we got these people who the oracles of Yah were not given to, these men who are now accepted as the authority on biblical scholarship. So they, not coming from a kind of culture which represents the scriptures, they superimpose their own thinking onto the text. And they say that the first 4 are prescribed with God, and therefore the remaining 6 are prescribed with man. But there are some, and I align myself with the some, who believe that your interactions with your parents, and specifically your father, is you interacting with El on earth. All right. So the father of the home is often said to have the mantles of priest, prophet, and king of his own home. So as a priest, he engages with the divine, right? He intercedes on behalf of his family, his clan, his tribe, and he teaches the oracles of the Creator according to the understanding that the Father has blessed him with. The prayers of the wife or vows, though she is second in command, her prayers and her vows cannot circumvent the husband, and in this case the father, who is also the husband. Her authority is not strong enough to override the will and office of the husband, so his words will stand even when spoken haphazardly. And as the prophet, he speaks life or death. His words carry power. He speaks to his environment, and his environment responds. Right? He speaks the vision. He speaks to his environment. His environment manifests his words. As the king, he reigns as a patriarch over his house and rules, establishing the order, function, and direction of the house until he passes away and passes that mantle to his heir. This is why this honor is worthy of death. You don't blaspheme Yah, and you don't dishonor your father. Both of these will cause you to die. This is hell on earth. You have to look at it from a cultural standpoint. Let's remove the stigmas away. This is hell on earth, and hopefully this man didn't become a father or a husband too early, because this power is dangerous in immature hands. But if he did, all is not lost, because he should have elders who are experienced enough to guide him and to teach him to channel this power that the Creator has given him and exercise it appropriately. Now, if he doesn't have a relationship with his father and no elders, then this is not good. All right, so honor thy father and thy mother. Honor thy father and thy mother. Honor, 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 honor. What does it mean to honor? Right, so we always chalk it up as respect. All right, so yes, it's respect, but in what ways? What does respect look like? See, we function as though we can find fault in our father and believe that we are better than him. See, males, and I'm using that word specifically as a substitution for men, males are using their misunderstanding as motivation, as a catalyst to be better than their father. But the spirit behind this, I want to do better than my father, is this haughty spirit. We are motivated by our lack of trust, by our negative view of our father. But we err in this regard because as a son, you don't have the proper vantage point to criticize your father. And in many ways, the only thing that has caused you to appear different, let me say that again, that has caused you to appear different than him is circumstance. Given the same circumstances, 9 out of 10, you are more likely to make the same decisions as your father because you are your father. See, I first found this out in my own life a couple years ago, how similar me and my father was. I never would have real conversations with my father. We would talk, but it wouldn't be anything in depth. I never knew how he grew up, but it wasn't until I start asking investigative questions into his childhood, and he was more than willing to share. But I had never took this initiative to find out about my father. And we've had a great relationship, but I still was unaware of me. And by me, I mean him. So when I began to ask him these investigative questions, and he started explaining to me how he grew up, and I would ask him about his relationship with his father and how was it growing up, that dynamic. I noticed these similarities. Some of this stuff was so eerie. Here I was thinking that I'm some type of trailblazer, and in some regards, sure, I did some things that my father didn't do, but all of these things that I did that my father didn't do does not make them good things. They may, on the surface, look good, but they doesn't necessarily mean that they were good things. But there were a lot more things that were actually similar, paths that were similar, situations that were similar, and I just never knew it. And so many of the men who I'm in close contact with has come to understand this. So some had to reconcile, and some always had a relationship. But we don't need a doctrine to establish that we are our fathers. And this is not a negative thing. Society is manipulative, but they're so captivating. And they will capture your attention. They will capture your train of thought. And they will teach you, Hebrew man, that you need to become your own man. In the movies, they think that this is some purpose-driven mission for a man to remove himself from the shadow of his father, to become his own man, to have his own identity, to do his own thing. This is what they teach you. And you have, unbeknownst to you, willingly ate this up. And so it makes it harder. It makes it harder for you to reconcile a relationship, because you have been programmed through movies and TV shows that it is a rite of passage for a young man to come into his own. And that coming into his own is him coming out of the shadows of his father, no longer doing what his father did, no longer wanting to be aligned with his father, but to become his own man, an individual with his own purpose, passions, and dreams. And that's baloney. But we are eating it up. And this is impacting our community. We don't function like this. Hebrews do not function in this capacity. Who has bewitched you? We don't do this. Well, we're not supposed to. We're doing it now. Media, movies, convincing you that this is how you're supposed to go. That's not the way of our fathers. So once again, we don't need a doctrine. So I know people be trying to come against, oh yeah, we're not our fathers. No, look, you don't need a doctrine. Natural law will tell you. It's very obvious. It's very obvious. This vantage point that I'm talking about, it's as if a father is standing on top of a cliff, right? And he's at the edge of the cliff where he can look down and he can see the entire landscape. And almost directly below him is his son. So his son, while looking up, can only see the bottom of the cliff and his father leaning over, and then sky in the background. That's all he can see from this vantage point, right? He's down looking up. His father is up looking down. If you can imagine this, the father being able to see the entire landscape, can see north, south, east, west. He sees what the son does not see. So he will make decisions that the son won't understand, even if it's from something at a distance. But in our arrogance, we have chosen to look up, not being able to fully see what's around, and judge our fathers and operate as though we're better than, like we know better, like we can do better. Like it's this pride. This pride there that we don't even recognize is there. How can you criticize someone when you can't see what they see? You don't even know the experience it took to get to the top of that cliff. to be able to see the entire landscape. So it's this arrogance that we tend to operate in. Okay? So what view do you have of your father? The Hebrew word being used for honor is kabed. And that means to be heavy, be weighty, be grievous, be hard, be rich, be honorable, be glorious. There's a couple words there that I really want to focus in and hone in on, because it's important to get the proper perspective. And those two words are heavy and weighty. So heaviness, look at it like this. Your father is the head, right? So you come into his presence, and that heaviness should cause a man to bow or kneel. If there is a weight or load on a man's neck, head, neck, or shoulders area, it will cause a man to lower his head, to position his body accordingly, because to not do so will be antagonistic to the load, right? So you basically will be fighting against yourself. The natural thing to do is to bend your head forward. The prideful thing, while you have this load on your neck, will be for you to try to straighten your neck to look straight, right? So you will be fighting against yourself, which is always against your better judgment. To try to straighten your neck while carrying a sack of potatoes will cause this strain. It will cause a strain. Listen to what I'm saying here. To straighten your neck while the load is present will cause a strain. And that will be the prideful man, the one who refuses to yield to that weight, and will only cause hurt and harm to himself, because he is fighting what is natural. This is why men from an intact Shemitic culture that hasn't been disrupted with something such as slavery, such as the Hebrews of the diaspora, sons and men will bow to their father. They are respecting the heaviness or the presence of their father. They're respecting it. And when it comes to something that's weighty, now to understand when something is weighty, let's first explore when something is light. So what we're going to do here is we're going to reverse engineer this one. So to understand weighty, we're going to reverse engineer it to understand what is light. And so from there, we're going to go to Leviticus 29, which reads, "For anyone who curses his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. He has cursed his father or his mother, his blood is upon him." Curses, cursed. What does that mean? So in our mind, we tend to think about profanity. And on the other end, we think about witchcraft, or to speak a certain sentence or phrase like, "I hope you die," or "thus and so will happen to you," some type of word curse, something like that. This is where we err, because our defiled minds, and I want you to really understand what it is that I'm conveying to you. Our minds tend to operate in extremes, and the danger happens in the middle. The Hebrew word for curse is kalal. And what that means is to be slight, to be swift, be trifling, be of little account, be light. All right. A few other ones is to appear trifling, to be lightly esteemed, to be insignificant. So the English word cursed or curses, when it says to curse your father and mother, this is what they're saying. They're saying to be trifling, or to be light. So what does that mean? To curse your father or mother is not in as much as what you say, but more in what you think in your heart. Remember, scripture says that as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So when you think in this manner, your actions will automatically manifest it. But a corrupted heart will proceed first. So what do we have? To be slight, be swift, be trifling, be of little account, be light. All right. The word slight literally means deficient in weight. Deficient in weight, solidarity, or importance. So to curse is to call that which you are cursing unimportant. It is deficient in its importance to you. It's trivial. All right, that's another word, a synonym for slight. It's trivial. So when you have no regard for something, that means that it is deficient in importance. Something that is trivial does not matter. It is insignificant. I remember reading the nutrition facts on a food box one time. All right, and so I was reading it, and I got to the portion where it says fat-free. All right, 0 mono-poly unsaturated fats, 0 trans fats. But outside that white box, where they have the nutrition facts, outside that white box, in little letters had an asterisk which read, contains a trivial amount of fat. What it was saying was that it was so small, so insignificant that it didn't warrant a true measurement, because although it is there, it isn't enough to move the needle, so it really doesn't matter. This is how some of you regard your fathers. He's there, but he really doesn't matter. It's trivial. You need to repent to the Father and reconcile with your father. You are cursing him, and that's the sin worthy of death. Just because you ain't cursed him out does not mean that you're being obedient to the 5th commandment. You are shortening your own days by being unaware of what it means to actually curse your father. The word trifling, what does that mean? It means that something is lacking in significance or solid worth. Trifling. Something is lacking in significance or solid worth. The next word was to be light. This is the definition right here. Remember, I said to understand what is weighty, which is honor. You have to reverse engineer that, or we're going to reverse engineer it to find out what is light. So, to honor is for something to be weighty, and to dishonor means that something is light. So when your father speaks, how much weight do you place on those words? When he gives you instructions, do you listen? Do you carry out directives? Right? Proverbs 1:8 says, my son. This is the father talking to his son right here. He says, my son, which is really the entirety of the book of Proverbs, but we're going to get to that soon. We're going to get there, with the exception of Proverbs 31, which at that point is a mother talking to her son. But the rest of this is a father talking to his son. So it says, my son, hear the instructions of your father. You listen to mama. Who corrupted your view of your father? To curse your father, you simply have to miscalculate the weight of his authority, presence, and words. We have leaders in Israel who need to reconcile with their fathers. No wonder they don't care if they're about breaking up homes and stuff like that, because there is this view of the father. The voice of his mother will reign supreme, but the mother is second in command. You don't forsake the general to appease the colonel. That is out of order. The colonel should be in line with the general anyway, so the word should actually be the same, and you wouldn't have this dichotomy to begin with. So you are diminishing the value of your father, his name, and reputation. Take this relationship seriously. You are taking a name, your father's name, and you are lowering it. decreasing its value where it doesn't hold any weight. You have made it light. Now, I understand that this is a learned behavior, either directly or indirectly, but you are now old enough to turn away from this behavior. To curse also means to be insignificant or lightly esteemed. We see this in Leviticus 24 with the child who blasphemed Yah and cursed in Exodus 22:28, saying that you should not blaspheme. He made what the Father said a light thing. So making light is viewing as insignificant or lightly esteeming. So something as weighty or has weight you take serious. This is a weighty matter. So you take it seriously. You give it an appropriate level of respect. So when you look down at your father because you don't understand his actions or because of a narrative that you heard or from what society has taught you, when you treat him or think of him with disdain, contempt, or devalue him, you are cursing your father. And since you are inherently connected to him, you are devaluing yourself. You don't have to curse him out. You don't have to yell at him. You don't have to actually, speak some type of a witchcraft curse on him. All you have to do to curse your father is to consider him and his words and his authority to be insignificant. And you are now out of order. You are now removing that hedge. And a lot of us have been operating with this hedge removed, thinking that we are anointed. The whole time, it is only because the mercy of the Father that he has spared us. We got to get it together. So I'm going to pivot, but I'm going to tie this in. All right. So Seth, right? You got Seth from the line of Adam, Cain, Abel, Seth. Seth was born, this is text now, this isn't me. Seth was born in the image and likeness of Adam. Have we ever considered what that means, right? I find it interesting that this was not mentioned about Cain or Abel. This is a different topic entirely. But a good son is an avatar of his father, right? I'm not gonna get into the Cain and Abel, but I want to just highlight this portion, and I'll let you do your own studies and you come to your own conclusions. But a good son is an avatar of his father. So what that means is that he is a variant phase or version of a continuing basic entity. That's the definition. I didn't make that up. That's one of the definitions for avatar. All right. So now a synonym for avatar is image. So see, Seth was born in the image and likeness of his father. So though Abel presented a good offering, what's very interesting was that the meaning of his name, Abel, what that name actually means is vanity. Once again, I'm not trying to cast any aspersions. You can do your own study, but it's very interesting that phrase was not mentioned for Cain or Abel, but for Seth. And through Seth, we get Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the 12. All right, so now while keeping with that same spirit of being a good son and the image and likeness of his father, we're going to go to Sirach or Ecclesiasticus 30 verses 3 through 6. Okay, now listen to this. He that teaches his son grieves the enemy, and before his friends he shall rejoice of him. Though his father die, yet is as though he were not dead, for he has left one behind him that is like himself. Let me read that again. Yet he, as though he were not dead, for he has left one behind him that is like himself. While he lived, he saw and rejoiced in him. And when he died, he was not sorrowful. He left behind him an avenger against his enemies, and one that shall requite kindness to his friends. Oh, this is so good. This is what it's about. This right here, this is the epitome. This is the embodiment of what it is supposed to be. See, the importance of this cannot be overstated, that the embodying of what a son is supposed to be and what we fathers are attempting to obtain. To not have a son when that man dies is as if that man never existed. He no longer remains on the earth, right? So this is why it was such a big thing. Like if someone did something especially egregious to the father, that he will cut off that line. It is as if that man never existed. Okay, so a man who has sons, but through either picking women who were not fit to be mothers, or some societal corruption, or even by him having children before he was mature enough, those seeds, they grew up among the weeds and became one with the weeds, intermingling their roots together. So it's almost as if they become a hybrid. And hybrid plants can come from a lab, but they can also form naturally in nature by cross-pollination. So those of you who grow food should understand this. It can happen by cross-pollination and, catch this, growing too close in proximity to another kind of plant that is not the same. So that's that cross-pollination really comes into play when they're growing too close together. So that's a message to those who are raising children in a particular situation where they are coming in close proximity or close contact with many who are not like them, right? Be careful, because the laws of nature will tell you that you are about to create a hybrid if you're not careful. You're going to create a hybrid. And I'm not talking about plants. I am talking about your seed, though. You're going to create a hybrid. Be careful. Come out from among them. Okay? So the seed becomes corrupted through hybridization and will not produce what you originally intended. It is important to note the natural law of sowing and reaping. So you who hear this and is in the role of a son, Yah willing, will eventually meet the time where you will take on the role of a father. This elevation is natural unless the Creator decides that for whatever reason, He does not want you to have sons. But if this isn't the case, these roles will naturally come, but those seeds you are sowing will produce after its kind. And with that, the scripture states, Ecclesiasticus 16:1-3, desire not a multitude of unprofitable children, neither delight in ungodly sons. Though they multiply, rejoice not in them, except the fear of Yahuwah be with them. Trust not in their life, neither respect their multitude. For one that is just is better than 1,000, and it is better to die without children than to have them that are ungodly. All right, I got a few more scriptures I want to go over because I want to highlight this principle. All right, Ecclesiasticus 3:5, and then Ecclesiasticus 11:28. Whoso honors his father shall have joy of his own children. All right, and I'm going to read that portion again. Whoso honors his father shall have joy of his own children. Sowing and reaping, sowing and reaping, sowing and reaping. He who honors his father shall have joy of his own children, and when he make his prayer, he shall be heard. And then 11:28, judge none blessed before his death, for a man shall be known in his children. So what it is that this is telling you is that it will be visible. It will be visible who has honored their father by the offspring they produce. So going back to the scriptures that got me to this point, that a man left one as himself. What you can clearly see here is that he had a good wife. She processed his sons correctly. See, the wife in the beginning phases, in the beginning portion of his life, it is the wife who is processing the son. She is the first teacher. She is the one who is dealing with the son more intricately, right? All right, so she processed his son correctly. She processed his son in such a way that his reflection is that of his father. It's like looking in the mirror. The boy looks in the mirror, however, the reflection is his father's face. All right, image and likeness. She has reproduced his image on the earth, and he clearly honored his own father because the fruit is prevalent in his children. What did we just read? Whoso honors his father shall have joy of his own children. So this is telling us that it's clear that man in Ecclesiastes 33-6, that he honored his own father. Because now look what he has underneath his wing. Look at this arrow that he has at his disposal. Okay? And that he aims that arrow in verse 6. It shows where he's aiming that arrow. And I'm going to get into that at a later time. But a good image, one that will follow after the ways of his father, one who knows the divine authority, presence, and words of his father were weighty, and he bowed down to this heaviness. He bowed to this weight. He gave it the appropriate and sufficient respect that was due. He reverenced this man. He reverenced his father as El on earth. No word was above his father. He knew his father was in line with the divine. So, from scripture, this really appropriately depicts King Solomon. Let me show you. I'm gonna end this soon. I hope. This is going on well longer than I wanted it to. But this really depicts King Solomon, like David and Solomon. Let's look at that. You know what? Wait, before we go there, let me state this. It is important to know that if a man had like 4, 5, 6 sons and one went astray, that this is not an indictment on the man. This is why righteous men need to continue to reproduce. Don't let them convince you to cut off your line. Don't let them convince you that children are a burden. Don't let them convince you of that. But if you are a righteous man, if you are, let's say your elders has spoken highly of you and your character and has esteemed you, these are the type of men who we need to continue to reproduce and populate the earth with righteous seed. The more he has, the reality is a few will go their own way. But if the totality is intact and solid, then he has clearly been obedient and has done well with what the Father has given him. And so sons born to a man in his latter years will typically be better stocked than those from his younger years. So this is to keep in mind as well. A man who's having sons later in life, those children, the quality, right? A man has finally learned his temperament. He's found his stride. So the ways that he made discipline when he was younger, a younger father, will not be the same when he's an older father, right? So he's found himself. Now, he didn't find himself an opposite of his father. That's not what I'm referring to. Like, I'm not referring to that systematic delusion that they have placed upon the minds of Hebrew men. But he found himself in his own development. So the sons, the children as a whole that's born to a man in his latter years will be typically of greater quality than the younger ones. All right, so before we get into Solomon, want to do a quick refresher so we can have it in the front of our minds as we're reading what David told Solomon and what Solomon did. Ecclesiasticus 30:3-6, Sirach 30:3-6. He that teaches his son grieves the enemy, and before his friends he shall rejoice of him. Though his father die, yet he is as though he were not dead. For he has left one behind him that is like himself. While he lived, he saw and rejoiced in him, and when he died, he was not sorrowful. He left behind him an avenger against his enemies, and one that should requite kindness to his friends. All right, King Solomon, 1 Kings chapter 2. When David's time to die drew near, he commanded Solomon his son, saying, I am about to go the way of all the earth. Be strong and show yourself a man, and keep the charge of Yahuwah your Elohim, walking in his ways and keeping his statutes, his commandments, his rules, and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses, that you may prosper in all that you do, and wherever you turn, that Yahuwah may establish his word that he spoke concerning me, saying, if your sons pay close attention to their way, to walk before me in faithfulness with all their heart and all their soul, you shall not lack a man on the throne of Israel. Moreover, you also know what Joab the son of Zeruiah did to me, how he dealt with the two commanders of the armies of Israel, Abner the son of Ner, and Amasa the son of Jether, whom he killed, avenging in the time of peace for blood that was shed in war, and putting the blood of war on the belt around his waist and on the sandals of his feet. Act therefore according to your wisdom, but do not let his gray hair go down. Do not let his gray hair go down to Sheol in peace, but deal loyally with the sons of Barzillai, the Gileadite, and let them be among those who eat at your table. For with such loyalty they met me when I fled from Absalom your brother. And there was also Shimei, the son of Gera the Benjamite, from Bahurim, who cursed me with a grievous curse on the day when I went to Mahanaim. But when he came down to meet me at the Jordan, I swore to him by Yahuwah, saying, I would not put you to death with the sword. Now, therefore, do not hold him guiltless. For you are a wise man. You will know what you ought to do to him, and you should bring his gray head down with blood to Sheol. All right, and so for the sake of time, so David commissioned Solomon. He told him what he wanted him to do, the things that was basically outstanding things that needed to be carried out. And Solomon obeyed his father. Why is this important? Because it shows the oneness between the father and the son. Would it be appropriate for a man to befriend the house that his father once strived against? That's not honorable. Imagine you having some legitimate issue with a man, with a man in his house, and then you find your son over there just kikiing with them, just grinning and smiling it up. Would you not feel betrayed? Do we lack loyalty that much that an oppressor of your father can easily become your friend? Well, if that's the case, who will pity a charmer who is bitten by a serpent? But you look at how Solomon lived this out. Solomon, which we didn't read this, but you continue reading the story, you will see that Solomon carried out the commands of his father. That's how it's supposed to be. I remember when I made my very first covenant, my children was there, and we was driving home, and I asked them, do you understand what just happened? I would explain these type of things to them. But I asked them, do you understand what just happened? And they said, yeah. So I said to them, remember this day and remember their house. Even when I'm no longer here, make sure that this word is fulfilled and carried out. So the vow that I made to that house, I'm commissioning my sons to make sure that those words are carried out even when I'm not here. And if they are good sons, and I believe they are, that house will stay tied with me, and my vow will be fulfilled all the days that our houses remained on the earth. So likewise, you see a good son in Solomon, who displayed the oneness that him and David had, and his obedience and reverence that he had with his father, carrying out directives when his father was not present to see if they would be fulfilled. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here, but I'm going to end this with a couple scriptures. So Ecclesiasticus 8, verses 8 through 9, it reads, "Despise not the discourse of the wise, but acquaint thyself with their proverbs, for of them thou shalt learn instruction." Catch this. "And how to serve great men with ease." So if you have a breach in your connection to your earthly father, you will struggle in your ability to serve men. And because of the capacity in which you serve will be given back to you, you will struggle to lead. This is one of the many reasons to repair the breach. Many, many reasons, but just one of them. It affects your relationships with other men. See, the Father in heaven said, as long as earth endures, or as long as earth remains, seed time and harvest will never cease. How you serve is how you will be served. Law of sowing and reaping. You can't avoid it. You can't. All right? So again, despise not the discourse of the wise, but acquaint thyself with their proverbs, for of them thou shalt learn instruction, and how to serve great men with ease. Miss not the discourse of the elders, for they also learned of their fathers. Look at that. They also learned of their fathers, and of them thou shalt learn understanding, and to give answer as need required. So, if you are not able to reconcile with your father, then I emphatically recommend to you that you submit to one greater than yourself. I emphatically recommend to you, submit to one greater than yourself. As Moses submitted to one greater than him, who was Jethro, Joshua submitted to Moses, Elijah submitted to Elijah. The template is there for you to submit to a wise man who can help you. I've done it, and it's been one of the best things I've ever done in my life. One of the best things was submitting to my elders. I have become a far better man. I've become whole. They were the ones who started encouraging me, even though I had a good relationship with my father, was to start actually getting to know my father, to start asking these questions to see, why am I like this? How did this happen? How did I become who I became? What was there in me that I didn't know? They led me on this path. So I thank the Creator for my elders. All right? See, one way brothers try to discreetly size up another brother is asking them how long they've been in the truth. That's one way they try to size up people. But that's vanity. That's so vain. So let's elevate. See, me and my covenant brothers, the men that I'm in covenant with, we ask men, what's your relationship like with your father? When I want to get how I want to initiate in determining the manner of a man, I want to know, what is your relationship like with your father? Let me know what manner of man I'm dealing with. Do you understand bloodline? Do you respect it? Do you understand authority? Or have you been infected by some narrative or an inflated ego that has attempted to elevate you to the seat where your father is supposed to sit, right? And raise you over the one who preceded you. So if this has convicted you, that's good. If this upsets you, you need to ask yourself why. Why would a man encouraging a man to reconcile a bad relationship with his father, why is that upsetting to you? Repair the breach. Have you been cross-pollinated? And are you now a seed that produces fruit that is not from the original? Hebrew men honor their father. You don't let society dictate to you how you are supposed to view your father. If you are of Abraham's seed, as you so claim, then give that man the honor that has been commanded from you by way of the fifth commandment, who it was delivered from the Father. Let's end with this. Ecclesiasticus 3:10. Glory not in the dishonor of thy father, for thy father's dishonor is no glory unto thee. For the glory of a man is from the honor of his father. Glory not in the dishonor of thy father, for thy father's dishonor is no glory unto thee. For the glory of a man is from the honor of his father. Until next time, peace and shalom.